The tall glass trophy cabinets had once served as bookshelves. There were hints. Hardware on the shelves dated back centuries, while the hinges and the tiny locks on the glass doors went back mere decades. The framing around the glass was cherry, but the cases had been built of oak. Someone had attempted to remedy this with a few coats of stain, but the grain didn't match. The color wasn't perfect. To trained eyes, details such as these were glaring. Congressman Donald Keene gathered these clues without meaning to. He simply saw that long ago there had been a great purge, a making of space. At some point in the past, the senator's waiting room had been stripped of its obligatory law books until only a handful remained. These tomes sat silently in the dim corners of the glass cabinets. They were shut in, their spines laced with cracks, old leather flaking off like sunburned skin. A handful of Keene's fellow freshmen filled the waiting room, pacing and stirring, their terms of service newly begun. Like Donald, they were young and still hopelessly optimistic. They were bringing change to Capitol Hill. They hoped to deliver where their similarly naive predecessors had not. While they waited their turns to meet with the great Senator Thurman from their home state of Georgia, they chatted nervously amongst themselves. They were a gaggle of priests, Donald imagined, all lined up to meet the Pope, to kiss his ring. He let out a heavy breath and focused on the contents of the case, lost himself in the treasures behind the glass, while a fellow representative from Georgia prattled on about his district's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And they have this detailed guide on their website, this response and readiness manual in case of, okay, get this, a zombie invasion. Can you believe that? Fucking zombies. Like even the CDC thinks something could go wrong and suddenly we'd all be eating each other. Donald stifled a smile, fearful its reflection would be caught in the glass. He turned and looked over a collection of photographs on the walls, one each of the senator with the last 4 presidents. It was the same pose and handshake in each shot, the same background of windless flags and fancy oversized seals. The senator hardly seemed to change as the presidents came and went. His hair started white and stayed white. He seemed perfectly unfazed by the passing of decades. Seeing the photographs side by side devalued each of them somehow. They looked staged, phony. It was as if this collection of the world's most powerful men had each begged for the opportunity to stand and pose with a cardboard cutout, a roadside attraction. Donald laughed, and the congressman from Atlanta joined him. I know, right? Zombies. It's hilarious. But think about it, okay? Why would the CDC even have this field manual unless... Donald wanted to correct his fellow congressman, to tell him what he'd really been laughing about. Look at the smiles, he wanted to say. They were on the faces of the presidents. The senator looked as if he'd rather be any place else. It looked as if each in this succession of commanders-in-chief knew who the more powerful man was, who would be there long after they had come and gone.